Hey, practice owners. We're back for another edition of Coming Back Stronger. I'm very excited to have our guest today, Chuck Blakeman. Chuck has a long history with the Profitable Dentist, contributed a number of articles. He's also an author of a couple of books, which, Chuck, I always like the way your book titles are because it makes you, it makes you think. It's a challenging why employees are always a bad idea. Top 10 book, and then your other one, Making Money is Killing Your Business. So it's one of the reasons we love you, Chuck. You got it. I like things that make me think and that make me say, all right, what does this guy mean? And then by the time you get to the end, you think, well, that makes total sense. So how you doing today, Chuck?
I'm doing well, and I appreciate your nod to the titles. I've said for decades, adults don't learn unless we're disoriented. So if you give me a title I understand, I've stopped learning.
There you go. And you have another one on the way, right? That was a little postponed, I guess, because of our situation.
Yeah, we actually we're going to roll it out in April, but it's going to come out in October, and it's called Rehumanizing the Workplace by giving everybody their brain back.
And same, we talked earlier that I think in the dental world, what the thing I speak on mostly is mindsets, the dentist mindset, how it compares and contrasts with your practice owner mindset. And it fits right in that strike zone. There are a lot of docs right now that are the leader of their business that, may not have wanted to be, they just want to be a dentist. But 86% of practice owners are dentists. So they have no training. They can't figure this stuff out. And you've always done a good job of helping. So if you could, and you might, if you would, Chuck, spend a minute. I know you have a little more illustrious past than dentistry, so kind of share who you are, where you came from, and then let's dive right in.
Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I actually graduated at the bottom of my class. I was left-handed from high school. I was left-handed, ADHD, dyslexic, and right-brained, and the only things they understood back then was left-handed, and they didn't like that either. The rest of it, they just thought I was stupid. So I graduated at the bottom of my class and went into the Army because they were the only ones that I thought would hire me. And while I was in the Army, I started my first business, and now from there I've built 12 businesses and 8 industries on 4 continents, and started writing down what we had learned about 10 years ago.
And you contribute to Inc. magazine. You contribute to the Profitable.
Yeah, I wrote for Inc. for about 5 or 6 years, and I have a lot of other places I've been. Harvard Business Journal, a bunch of other places. So, when people read my my resume, it sounds like an obituary. It always just makes me uncomfortable.
Okay, good. Well, and so we were talking earlier. You also, by the way, before I forget, you started a summit, for lack of a better term, a few years ago, kind of a dental meeting.
Yeah.
Get Off the Treadmill, GOTT, Get Off the Treadmill Summitt. Can you kind of explain, because that is specifically dentistry, right?
Yeah, and it's based on that first. Most of it's on we have 2 of them. One's on the first book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, and the other one's on the employee's book. And the idea behind them is to help business owners or practice owners actually get off the treadmill. Too many of them are not actually practice owners except by the IRS's standards. They're actually income producers. And the way we know that is because they can't get away from their practices. And if they can't get away from their practice, then they're not a business owner. They're not a practice owner. They're an income producer. We have this guy, we'll leave his name out, in Chicago. He's in his early 60s. He had shut his practice down 1 or 2 weeks a year, and he went on vacation. The practice shut down for 35 years. And we helped the guy. We helped him figure it out. And last April, he first time in his life, he went away for a week of vacation. He made more money that week that he was gone than the 52 weeks prior. He has become an income producer. And now instead of working 5 days a week, he works 2 days a week. And he makes an extra $75,000 take home working 2 days a week over and above what he used to working 4 days in dentistry and 1 day doing his accounting.
And that is, he's not alone. Chuck, no. That's sort of how you're trained. When if you can't be there, we just shut down. And
I call it the factory system mindset. We came out of the factories. The factories paid us for 8 hours a day. You get $8, and if you want overtime, you get paid more money. So we trade time for money. And then we started our own practice. We just assumed that we have to trade time for money. It's the dumbest rule we ever followed.
or do it 4 times a year. Imagine
Yeah.
a doc who does this every quarter and said, I've gone into practices that say, I need a break. I'm taking a week off every quarter. I deserve it. I went to dental school.
Yeah.
Nobody's disagreeing with that. What I'm just disagreeing with is that's a month of revenue. That's a month of bills that get shut off that really don't have to. And I know you do a really great job with the Get Off the Treadmill Summit, and just I think the concept of you can. So right now, Chuck, the treadmills, I don't know, I was trying to think of a good analogy because I love the way you do it. Treadmills are unplugged right now.
Well, yeah, in fact, we've traded in the treadmill for a roller coaster.
There you go. Yeah.
The economies are roller coasters. They go up, they go down, they go up, they go down. And we just went over the top of the roller coaster. What's everybody doing on the first hill on the way down? They're screaming like crazy.
Right.
And some of them are truly terrified. And so we've got a roller coaster on, and we can't stop this roller coaster. Now, some of us can stop the roller coaster of our business. We can react by pulling our business, our practice, off of the roller coaster. Mm-hmm. And what you'll do if you do that, you will end up on one of those little 4-foot plastic kiddie slides. And if you put an 18-month-old down the slide the first time, what are they doing? Man, they're grabbing onto the sides and they're jamming their feet into the sides and they're inching their way down this little tiny 4-foot slide. And that's what a lot of dentists are thinking about doing right now. They hunkered down, they stopped, they quit, they're watching Netflix, they're just waiting this thing out. Man, we got to take the energy of this thing. That we need to ride the roller coaster down as fast as we can. Mm-hmm. Because the practices that ride it down fast are going to be riding it up fast while the rest of the guys are pushing their carts back up the next hill.
I heard a long time ago, I remember isms, and one of them was somebody that I knew really well years ago. Actually, he told me 2 things that I remember. One was, don't confuse activity with productivity.
That's right.
And, that took me a long time to get that right. But the other one was, he said, focus on your responding, not your reacting. Yeah. And the way he explained it was, something's going to happen and you're going to have a knee jerk. You're ready to react.
Yeah.
And he said, take a minute, take a breath, think about that, measure it against a smart thing to do. Sometimes it's the right thing. Sometimes it's absolutely the wrong thing. And right now you have a lot of practice owners who just got I don't even know some of them, I think, were waiting for a text from the governor or the president and says, okay, all clear, we can come out now. Yeah. And some of them, I think, want to come charging out. But I think at the end of the day, all of them have to look at their practice. And there's a bunch of unknowns, and maybe you can share your perspective on this. I wondered what the difference is now than when you started your practice, maybe 25 years ago. You had a ton of unknowns. You didn't say, okay, I'm coming out today with 100% of my staff and a full patient load. I'm going to flip a switch and I have a dental practice. You had to work up to it. You had to maneuver some landmines. You had to figure this junk out. And in a way, do you feel that? You're kind of doing that again.
I think we're telling everybody, all the practice owners, you are now all startups.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, grieve over what you've lost, because we're in a different world now and things are going to be different for dentists going forward in some very radical ways. And you're all, so grieve over it, but then get over it. Spend about 10% of your time grieving and 90% of your time figuring out, how do we take advantage of this thing? There's a martial art called Aikido. I just learned this. I'd heard about it, but I learned the principle of it about 2 months ago, talking to somebody about the idea of using the recession to our benefit. And he says, well, that's just what the whole Aikido martial art is about. The principle behind Aikido is you use the energy coming toward you for your advantage. You don't consider it bad. You don't consider it good. You just use it. Okay, here's energy coming at me. How do I use this to my advantage? And that's the whole principle behind the Aikido martial art. That's the principle we need our dentists to be taking now. Don't look at this as bad. In fact, I would look at it as good because adults don't learn unless we're disoriented. And to your point, everybody's been comfortable doing whatever they were doing for the last 20 years. And all of a sudden, we got a huge dose of being disoriented. Puts us in a great position to look at our practices and say, well, now what really should I do differently this time?
Well, I see businesses growing incrementally. And you and I both built a lot of businesses. And
yep.
a lot of things creep in, and there was a management theory this years ago. A friend of mine, we actually went to college together, and he worked for a big grocery store chain, one of the biggest, might be the biggest in the country. And he had worked up to be the manager. And he coincidentally was a manager of this store in the city where I live. And I bumped into him, and he says, "Oh, I'm leaving. I'm going, to this other store." And I said, "You just got here. I mean, this is like you're great. You've turned this thing around." And he said, "We have a philosophy and a rule. I can't stay here more than 2 years." And at first I thought, well, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. If somebody's doing really good, just keep doing that over and over and over. And he said, you know what he said, at first I thought that because I like this place, but he goes, what I realized was if I'm really good at turning these things around, they're going to move me where I can do that again. And he said, the other thing is I incrementally get, I've knocked it out of the park, and I got my plaque, at the end of the first year at the president's dinner. And he said, even I realized I slowly get comfortable. So while my change was going like this, at first it's flattening out a little bit. So the idea being, we incrementally add this, and now we might have 2 staff members we really don't need because, they snuck in. We have some expenses we really don't need. We bought this piece of equipment. I didn't really look hard at the ROI, but it's kind of cool. But 5 years, 6 years, 10 years in, you got a lot of junk. So now's a good time, you think, to clean that?
Oh, absolutely. There's 3 things that practice owners should be doing right now. One of them they should have already been spending the last month on. That is preserve cash and get cash. Go out and get as much cash as you can, get loans, get credit lines, get everything you can, get the PPP, the EIDL, get every bit of money you can, with the assumption that this is going to turn out just great and we're all going to come roaring back. But what if we don't? And if we do, we come roaring back, you will be in a better position because you have cash to grow even faster. If we don't come roaring back, you will be in better positions because you have cash, because we're not roaring back. So either way, go get cash. The second thing is get your house in order. And this is the one you're just talking about. Part of getting your house in order will be pivoting, will be changing some of the things you're doing and looking at what you've been doing and saying, is this really what I should have been doing all this time? Mm-hmm. And so take a good hard look at it. Now that you've been disoriented, say, do we really need this? I think there's so many things we've had in our first world comfort lives that we're just going to, it'll probably take us years, if ever, to bring some of these back into our lives because we just said, hey, I've lived without this for a month and a half. I really don't need this. Mm-hmm. So we need to have that mindset. And the third thing is we need to stay in front of our patients. We need to figure out how to do that and then get back in front of them now that things are opening up. So those are the 3 things that I would suggest people do. But let me give you 2 sentences that's going to define everybody's reemergence here. You want them to come back stronger. We've been using these 2 sentences for years, and sometimes things you say become really important at certain times. Here's 2 sentences that define everybody's lives. One's a statement, one's a question. The statement is, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. I don't know how to get out there and change things. I don't know how to respond to this new world. I can't do that. I'm too used to where I came from. Well, Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Mm-hmm. And the second one is the question. So the first one is, I can't do that. Second one is, how do I do that? And you see 2 people facing the same circumstances and their lives diverge forever because one said, I can't do that. And the other said, I'm going to figure this out. So we get to decide. What was it? Frankl, who wrote The Man's Search for Meaning coming out of the Holocaust. He said, the last freedom you have is the freedom to choose your own way. And we've got the freedom at this point to choose our own way. And we need to be asking ourselves, how do I do that? So the mindset here, Steve, for me is circumstances don't make me who I am. How I respond to them does. How am I going to respond to this circumstance? That's going to make me who I am going forward. And I'm going to respond with, how do I do that?
And I think fundamentally what I see with dentists, in fact, Chuck, I cannot tell you how many emails who ask if they should start on their MBA now. I'm 45, this is difficult. Should I start on an MBA? And I always—
That's hunkering down, baby.
Yeah, but really that is a dentist mindset, and it's not. So here's what I always describe when I do that talk. What your dentist mindset says, and again, depending on where you go to school, I went to University of Iowa, and here's how we do an atraumatic extraction, or here's how we prep a crown. It's A, B, C, D, E. We're going to get our diploma based on doing that exactly the way we were taught. We're going to get our license based on doing exactly that.
Yeah.
Business doesn't work that way.
No.
Should I invest in this piece of equipment? Yes and no. Should I hire these people? Yes and no. Should I add this particular treatment to my
Depends.
Yes and no. And the neat thing is, what I always say is, they're all right.
Yeah.
And but I think that's a challenge. You know, we talked earlier about your friend. I think you still do some work with Craig Spodak, Dr. Spodak.
Yeah.
So I always talk about Craig's friend, Craig and Pete, and I think you know Pete Bolden.
Oh yeah.
So the two guys who've built amazing practices, and I've had them when I've had them speak for me. I always have them together. They're always on the stage together. And Craig will say, "Well, here's how I built a magnificent dental practice. I like the control, so I built this great big building, and I have a lot of associates, and we're all under one roof, and I can manage it, and I can walk around every day, see them, say, you know, how we doing, and I have control, and it's worked very well, and it's very profitable." Over here's Pete Bolden in Atlanta, who says, I don't want all these people under one roof, so I built practices all over Atlanta. Same number of practices, same number of people, same number of dollars in the, you know, I don't think they would mind. It's the tens of millions, all over Atlanta. And Pete says, I don't want them all in the same building. I want one over here, one over here, one over here, one over here. So which one's right? They both are. Yeah. And that is a challenge, I think, for the dentist mindset. And I mean, I'd like your input on this or perspective.
Well, I have an unpublished book, Steve. The title is, and you like my titles, Bad Plans Carried Out Violently: How Real Leaders Lead and Succeed in the Real World.
Yeah.
And the mindset here is that business planning is a bankrupt industrial age idea. It's fortune telling, it's voodoo. You can't put together a plan at dental school and then just run it out, or at the beginning of every year and then just walk it out. It doesn't work. The real world is going to mess with your plan. You need to do strategic planning, which is rolling and dynamic and changes almost weekly, certainly monthly, and definitely quarterly. So the mindset here is that planning, the Greeks taught us that we would just plan things and make them happen. But the reality of it is, in the real world, planning does not create movement. Movement creates the plan. And that is antithetical to what we were taught in dental school. But it is true in business. If you work on the precautionary principle, which is a scientific principle, it says if you can think of anything that might go wrong and you don't have a contingency for it yet, don't do anything. Right. Stop. Well, that may work in putting a man on the moon, but in business, it's the kiss of death. Yeah. The businesses that are really working this out and being successful are the ones who are making it up as they go along. Bill Packard, he stopped getting invited to MBA courses because he said, we didn't have a business plan. We made this up as we went along. So it's important to know exactly where you want to end up. That is critical. You got to know where you most want to end up. Most people don't know that piece. They just know where they want to go next week. They have no idea where they want to go 5 years from now. That's the guiding light. That's your true north. That will help you make all these fluid decisions on a daily basis. But planning doesn't create movement. Movement creates the plan. Get out there, and the faster the more you go, the better your plan will get.
I had somebody years ago told me, here's how you plan. You plan to go as far as you can see.
Yes.
You get there. Now, once you're there, then figure out the lay of the land, figure out what got you there easier, what were the challenges, make some new decisions, and then go further. And then once you get there, go as far as you can plan and see, and then go further still. But not start out, you know, if we start out, I'm going to drive from, California to New York, man, there are 1,000 things that are going to happen in between. Yeah. But when the first one hits and I say, oh my gosh, my plan just blew apart. No, it didn't. If in business,
that's just information.
It's just new information. But I think the other thing that I see, and maybe you know a lot of dentists. We know a lot of dentists. We're not dentists. And so for us, for me specifically, as an outsider, it's things I can't understand. You're smart. I always say, good grief. You went through dental school and they gave you a diploma. And then you went to your state and they gave you a license. Holy cow. And you're worried if you're a good dentist?
Right.
The only people that matter say yes. So get that out of your head. But what I see is when they combine that with their practice ownership is, and I'd like your sort of thoughts or observations, they see that as being a failure. If I tried this, if I went to a bunch of sedation courses and I spent 25 grand and at the end of the year, I didn't do a single case and I spent 25 grand, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
I don't think you're a failure. You just figured out something your customers don't want to buy and don't do that again. But dentists see that as a personal failure. I'm a failure
Absolutely.
as a dentist.
Well, and this is just it's a longer discussion. We don't have time for it today, but we can just get people thinking about it. In my book, my first book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, I talk about lifetime goals and how critical it is that we have lifetime goals. What is it you want as a result of having been a dentist? What do you want to look back on? What is your obituary? What are people saying you at your funeral? Write your obituary, write your legacy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want? Get all that stuff figured out and then run toward it. I didn't make this stuff up. Stephen Covey said, start with the end in mind. He didn't make that up either. But that's the idea. And most people have no idea what the end is. They've never talked through what is truly the end that I want. So once you figure that out, here's what happens. Every other thing that you thought used to be a goal is no longer a goal. It's just a waypoint. It's just a point along the way to get you to your lifetime goals. And then it just becomes information. So I didn't fail. I didn't succeed. It's just information. Disraeli said, treat victory and defeat like the imposters that they are. And that's so true. If we're trying to get to a much more global place, a much more universal, longer place, then having not had this piece work out for me, it's just information. If I'm sailing a boat from Norfolk to Bermuda, and I got 4 days to do it, and in the first day I only get halfway there because somebody got sick and I got pulled off course and all kinds of bad things happened, did I fail? No. It's just information. So that means the next day I got to get up earlier, or I need to decide I'm going to get to Bermuda 4.5 days instead of 4. It's just information. I love this book by Zander and Zander called The Art of Possibility. The Art of Possibility by Rosamund and Benjamin Zander. And in their book, they talk about that every situation in life should have only one response. Whether you perceive it to be bad or you perceive it to be good, every situation gets one response. Fascinating. And I added to that, fascinating. How did that happen? Because see, that's the learner's response. If you lose the Super Bowl, what do? You go get drunk. Mm-hmm. If you win the Super Bowl, what do? You go get drunk. And in neither case do you learn anything.
Right.
But if both of them would say, fascinating, how did that happen? How did we lose? Let's make sure that doesn't happen again. How did we win? Let's make sure that happens again. Just be fascinated. Stop whining. Stop investing all your energy in failure and victory and defeat, and figure out how to become a lifelong learner. So here's the practical. I like to make things practical for our dentists. Going forward, you never will have another victory. You will never have another defeat. What you will have is seminars.
Okay.
Everything is going to be a seminar. And there's 2 rules on seminars. Go to the least expensive seminar, the least expensive and shortest seminar you can. That's rule number 1. So make the shortest and least expensive mistake or victory you can. And the second one is don't repeat a seminar.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If you figured it out, if you've already made this mistake, don't do it again. Mm-hmm. These are just seminars. And we know seminars cost money and they take time. So sometimes my seminar is 3 months in my practice and I did something that was a left turn and it cost me $50,000. Expensive seminar. Learn from it. Don't do it again.
And I think the beauty of it is, I have 5 kids and they're all, they're grown and gone, but I would always say, don't lose the lesson. And the lesson might be, don't do that again.
That's it. Yeah. Don't repeat the seminar.
And that's okay. And what I would also tell them is, but if you look back and you take the last 10 seminars, it's a great way to look at it. You take the last 10 valuable lessons, you're going to find that, it's the bell curve of life. One of them was a disaster. You never should have done it. One of them is something that it went out of the park and you don't even know how it happened. Yep. And the rest of them are sort of in the middle, but it's fundamentally still good and you're still moving forward. And I think practice owners right now just need to hear that. It's okay. Nobody knows the answers. No. We were talking ahead of time. Nobody, you know, what I was saying is I like when I see the experts on, you know, the news come on. The expert in what right now? Expert in the last, you know, economic shutdown we had.
Yeah.
I mean, have they been through more worldwide economic shutdowns than anybody else? How about pandemics? Are they the expert in the last few pandemics we've had? There are no experts. We've never been through this. And as a practice owner, neither of you. But the important thing is step and step and step at a time.
Yeah, Stephen, they're all bad plans right now. That's the mindset.
Right.
Is everything's a bad plan, and you have to carry it out violently. In the Latin, violentus means with utmost conviction and utter conviction, with utmost conviction and just the strongest commitment. So get out of my way. I've got somewhere I need to be. That's what it doesn't mean beat somebody up. Take your plan. You know it's bad. It's not perfect because you haven't played it out in the real world. We've never had a pandemic like this. You've never been shut down for 6 or 8 weeks. It's the first time you've ever reopened under those circumstances. Right. Take whatever plan you have and get moving. I can't emphasize that enough. Planning doesn't create movement. Movement creates the plan. Get it. 80% of your information is going to come in 20% of the time it took you to plan all this. And the other 20% of your information is going to come because you moved. So get a nice little plan. Know that it's bad. Get moving, and the only possible way to make it good is to get out there and run it out, because movement creates the plan.
What is it? What did Mike Tyson say? You know, a plan is fantastic right up until you get punched in the
That's right. Every boxer has a plan until he gets hit in the mouth.
And you know, you're going to get, and I think really maybe that's the message I think to communicate here to a practice owner who really expects the protocol, who expects it to go as planned. Every treatment goes as planned. And, you know, right now you're going to get punched in the mouth a lot. And, I think the other thing might be, if we can maybe make sure we get this sort of last item in, back to the book you're writing, is the practice owner, you own it. Up until this point, you've been able to say, you know, I want to do the dentistry. Mary Jane, you take care of this. It's a business thing, so you take care of this. You lose that right now. You don't get that. You are the leader. Any advice for somebody who is just either the realizations occurred or they're struggling with saying, okay, everybody's coming to me. The whole team's coming to me. What are we going to do? When are we going to open? How does PPE work? How do all these uncertain things play out? And they want my opinion. Any sort of advice?
You bet. The new book is called Rehumanizing the Workplace, and I'm actually doing a dental version, Rehumanizing Dentistry by giving everybody their brain back.
Okay.
Because in dental school, the dentist was taught his or her expertise was paramount, and it is clinically. But in terms of the business side, we just get in the habit of telling people what to do on the business side as well, when we probably shouldn't be doing that. And then they get used to it, and they start leaving their brains at home. And then we get frustrated because nobody's helping me make the decisions, but we created that. So we've got to change that. It's called distributed decision making. That's the principle. How do we get decisions to be made where they have to be carried out again safely, so that there's not, it's not chaos and anarchy? So here's the operative question going back out as we open our practices again. Instead of having everybody come to you and say, Ms. Dentist, how do we do this? Or what do we do? Or it's all coming to her. She needs to think. In fact, I would even go out and I would buy this. We probably should make this. We'd probably make $1 million on this. We're going to have everybody buy a necklace with a mirror on it. And then they're going to pass out little laser pointers to everybody in their practice. And we're going to practice this. Okay, point the laser pointer at me. And I'm going to take the mirror, and I'm either going to point it back at you or point it at one of your compadres or point it at somebody else. Yeah. And so we're going to teach you how to do distributed decision making. Every time you come to me, I'm going to say, did you Google that? Did you talk to one of your teammates? Have you guys figured out the best possible thing? Don't come to me and ask me what to do. Come to me and tell me, this is what I intend to do. And then I'm going to ask you hard questions. That's distributed decision making. So there's no chaos, no anarchy. We're all going to be in this together, and I'm going to help you make the decisions. But you're going to come to me with your brain turned on saying, to our best understanding, this is what we intend to do. Now you try and shoot holes in it. And if you can't, then we're going to go do that. So the mindset here is simply this. It's the same question we've always asked, but we've got to have a different thing in our head when we ask it. The dentist would always ask themselves when they come up with a problem, who can solve this problem? and the who is always singular. And it's almost always the practice manager. We teach people to actually turn their practice manager into a leader and put them back into production. To your point, Craig Spodak's business, 55 people in one location, they have no managers. Mm-hmm. They have one practice leader for 55 people. And that's because we've taught them distributed decision-making using this question. So instead of saying, who can do this, and it's always singular, it's the same exact question. Who can solve this? And it's plural. So if the front desk has a problem, who can solve it is the 3 people at the front desk, or the 7 of us. If you have a little small individual practice, we have clinics all over America now who have a leadership team. They have a clinic of 8 to 13 people, and they have a leadership team of 8 to 13 people. Because who can solve this is everybody. All these brains together will have a much better shot at solving this. And there's protocols, there's little systems and processes in that. But that's what we really need to be doing, is figure out how do we get other people to begin to make these decisions, not on their own, not in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. Once you figure this out, bring it to me, and then I'll try and shoot holes in it. And if I can't, that's a great decision. Go do it. But I am not going to tell you what to do. That's over.
And I think that is smart. You know, when you were saying that, I always have a sort of situation in business I've just developed over the years where you get somebody who always wants to bring you the problem, and they anxiously wait for your answer so they will carry it out. And I always say a couple things. One is, bring me some solutions. We know the problem. We agree. Yeah. You know, I agree it's a problem. Now bring me some solutions. And the neat thing is, you'll find that maybe, I don't know, PPE, they're so focused on it and wanting the answer is because they're interested in it. And who better to do the research, you know, put together option A, B, and C, and then bring it to the group. And the other thing I notice is when you bring it to the group, they sort of take a little extra effort. Instead of waiting for you to give an answer so they can kind of start knocking it down, let them be the ones who become your, you know, in the corporate world, it's a SME, it's a subject matter expert. Right. And now, you know what? You're the SME. So
it's a real simple concept of humanity. Mm-hmm. Input equals ownership. Why don't they? I had a great idea for them. I had them implement my great idea, and they're carrying it out really badly. Why is that? Well, it wasn't their idea, and you gave them no input in it, so they have no ownership in it. Mm-hmm. People commit to what they create. You should not be making up processes and protocols for the front desk. You should be saying, front desk, you need processes and protocols. Now figure it out. And I'm going to keep sending you back. Every time you bring me one that doesn't work, I'm going to say that doesn't work, and here's why. It doesn't work for the accounting or for the back office, so you got to go back, try again. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm just going to continue to ask hard questions, because once you figure it out, you're going to own it. And then they'll continue to improve it. So people commit to what they create.
I think the important thing is to make sure they know it's not personal.
No.
It's not. I'm not saying you're a terrible front desk person because the first policy you wrote didn't work.
No.
It's probably not going to work.
It's just fascinating.
It won't work 100%.
It's just fascinating.
Yeah. And so I think the docs who figure that out now are the ones who do come back stronger. Yeah. And the ones who think, okay, I just want to get back to the way it was as quickly as possible. I think, you know, Chuck, I don't know that there's any industry that gets back to the way it was.
No.
I can't think of one.
No.
Whatever it is not getting back to the way it was. But that's good, I think. That creates lots of opportunities.
It's unbelievable the amount of opportunity that will come out of this. Again, because we're disoriented, survival is a very strong instinct. Almost the overwhelming majority of innovation and creativity comes from struggle and survival. 80+% of all patents come from companies in the first 2 years of their existence. After that, they're no longer disoriented. They stop creating. Mm-hmm. So we're in our infancy again. We're all startups. Let's think creatively, and let's take that excitement and run with it. We didn't know when we opened our practice. We weren't sure if our pricing was right, if we had the right market, if we had the right marketing, if we had the right people. We had so many things, and yet we were excited.
And yeah,
so let's get excited again. We got a bunch of questions. We don't know.
Find that excitement again. That is spot on.
We're all startups.
Awesome. And that's a great place to sort of a great summary statement. You are you really are in a startup again.
Yeah, ride the roller coaster down as fast as you can. We're all startups.
Yep.
It's all just fascinating.
Well, Chuck, it is always fun talking to you. You are, you and I think that, the neat thing about entrepreneurialism is it is always new. And I always think, somebody will come to me and say, what do you think about this idea? Well, I think if you can put that together, make it a business and be profitable, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
But, and focus on that. And in dentistry, you just don't have, it really is a unique industry that you get a dental school education and then 86% of you become entrepreneurs.
That's right.
Nothing else like it. But I think the message that we're trying to share today and in this series is just that. Don't let that hold you back. Don't think you're a failure. Don't sit at home, let it overwhelm you and beat you up. That's going to happen. That's part of the deal.
Yep.
I tell you what, if I turn on, if I'm sitting here and I have 20 minutes and I watch Fox News and then I watch CNN, the next stop is go have a beer somewhere. I mean, right. It just is overwhelming. So turn that off and then focus on your business. So any parting words of advice, anything there's a practice owner listening out there that's sort of getting a little optimism, anything to help keep them lifted?
Yeah, probably the one big statement that I've lived my life on and keeps coming back, and people hear me say this a few times a week. You get what you intend, not what you hope for. Too many people are going to be out there hoping that things go back to normal, hoping that whatever they started is going to work. No, you can't hope. Can't hope your way to success. Intend. Yep. And intend simply means do everything that is within your power to make it happen. And if it doesn't happen, you did everything you could. You intended to make it happen. And the mark of that is you did everything in your power to make it happen. And you fully intend that it will work out that way. So your mind is set on that. So it's the Henry Ford thing again. This time, if you think you can, you probably can. Intend to do it. Don't just hope.
Fantastic. Great sentiment. So, well, with that, practice owners, we're coming to the end, coming back stronger. Chuck, as always, it's always an informative discussion. I've got my Chuck Blakeman note list here. If I wanted to put a link in how to get in touch with you in the show notes, or if you want to share an email.
Yeah, pretty simple. Just chuckblakeman.com.
Okay.
www.chuckblakeman.com, or you can hit me at chuck@cranksetgroup.com. Crankset, CRANKSET, like the bicycle, cranksetgroup.com.
Fantastic. Chuck, again, I can't tell you enough how much I think your insight and experience really does a lot for docs who again are sitting out there they're getting ready to start back. So they've gone from the terror of shutting down to now we're coming back, and now it's the terror of, we're coming back. What do we do? And I think the message just that, it's you do what you intend to do. Don't just wait and see what happens, but put it in motion. And right now it's sort of every day. So don't make 1 month plans right now, because it's every day. Yeah. So awesome. Chuck, thanks again for coming on. Practice owners, hang in there, come back stronger. Until next time, this is Steve Parker, and we'll see you soon.